Okay. Welcome everybody to the Honors Alumni panel. Today we have a variety of guests here who have gone through RCC's honors program and lived to tell the tale. And they're here to provide some of their knowledge and experience of what it was like going from honors to a four-year university and in some cases beyond. And so what I will do then is let's just take a minute. I'll call the names of our guests. Tell me where you transferred to and where you're currently at in your educational journey, and also what you're studying. So let's start with Stephen.
I'm currently a senior at UCLA. I transferred 2 years ago from RCC, and I'm studying psychology. And right now I'm getting ready to move to FSU as I start a graduate program, a PhD program in cognitive psychology, studying memory.
Jesse.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessie. I am a third-year transfer student at UCLA in psychology, and I am also in the honors program at UCLA.
Oh, cool. Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert. I am a junior at UCR, currently studying physics.
Haley.
I am a rising senior at Pomona College studying media studies.
Eli.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy to be here. My name's Eli Martinez. I'm a third-year junior transfer at UC Berkeley. I'm a Regents and Chancellor Scholar here at UC Berkeley, a sociology major and a public policy minor.
Sarah.
Hey guys, I transferred to UCR and have graduated since, and am now in a master's program at CSUSB studying history.
And Mary.
Hi guys, my name is Mary. I transferred to UCSD and I am double majoring in cognitive behavioral neuroscience and business psychology. I am also a senior, finally.
Questions that are here somewhere. Okay. So the first question that we have for all of you guys is, how did you decide where you wanted to transfer, and what factors led to your decision? Keep in mind, anybody can field this. We don't necessarily need everybody to answer it, but let's just, and whoever wants to pop in can just pop in.
I can go.
Okay.
Okay. So for my decision, it was a little complex because I'm also a disabled student. And so that was probably the most important factor for me, was what the resource centers were like for disabled students at all of the colleges that I got into. And also I'm a veterans dependent student. So it was also like, what financial resources will I have being a veteran dependent? And I would say the third one was campus life, what the atmosphere is like. And for me, as being a transfer student, I know UCLA has a very opening transfer center, an environment. They even have their own dorm dedicated to transfers. And so that was, yeah. And then my major was like last because those other things just happened to be more important, at least to me.
Well, that's a good answer, because a lot of times people say, well, it was my major, stupid, but you're right. Major isn't the only reason to choose or to pursue a transfer university. Someone else.
So there's two reasons why I went where I went. One of them was one of the teachers that I connected with at RCC had gone there and had a really good experience and suggested it to me. But the other one was that the requirements that I wanted to fulfill in order to transfer led me to UCLA. So I was able to take a math class that was like algebra for statistics and kind of skip some of those other math classes. So yeah, that honestly, math, that's why I transferred to UCR.
I want to bridge off what Sarah said. So I kind of decided at RCC where I wanted to transfer based on assist.org. So, you know, like you said, the requirement's stupid, but in that sense, I narrowed my list down to a top school. So UCLA had a lot of overlap with other UCs like UCSD and UCI. So luckily I was accepted into those schools in Cal State Long Beach. And then it was just a point of where I would want to choose and what was closer to my family at that point.
Yeah, for me, it was very different. I had originally committed to UCLA. I was gung ho for UCLA. And probably like a week and a half before the SIR deadline, I rescinded my application to UCLA and accepted UC Berkeley because they offered me a Regents and Chancellor scholarship. So I got a full ride to Cal because of that. So I just couldn't.
That's an excellent reason.
Yeah, yeah. But then as I started to, about my program too here at Cal, it is one of the best ones in terms of sociology. And UCLA did fall a little bit behind in that, but I mean, I was just more enthused about campus life at UCLA and the transfer center too. But it's not to say that they don't have like, other positive stuff too, in terms of here at Cal.
I can go next.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, well, I guess you can. Okay, so for me, it was very complicated because originally I was thinking I'd transfer to like UCLA, but one of my very close friends goes to Vassar College, which is a private liberal arts college, and I was very just like the way that they would just describe it as, just like small class sizes, and you have like advisors that work closely with you, and you have a lot of guidance and a lot of peer mentorship. And I just decided that that would probably be more my style, especially because I kind of got used to that at RCC. And then I also wanted to go to school close to home. And I wanted to go to a prestigious school. And I found out that Pomona College is like one of the best. Forbes ranks it like as, I think, like the 12th best school in the country. And I was really wanting to like go somewhere with prestige. And I was like, well, this is like in my backyard. It's like the small school experience I want. And it's just, it has the mentorship I wanted. So that all kind of played into me deciding to go there. Yeah. So.
Excellent. Robert?
Sort of like how Eli was saying, for me, it was definitely a combination of finances. UCR offered to pay for everything. And there were more research opportunities for my field here that I'd have access to than if I went somewhere else. So access to research.
Cool. And how about Mary?
So I don't know if well, I guess you guys haven't done this. We usually in the honors program do a field trip to a campus, and you pack up on a bus and you drive for a couple hours or something, and they set you free on the campus. You take a tour and you get to ask these questions and all that. And Hogan took us to UCSD, and I fell in love with that campus, not because it was beautiful, but because I originally at RCC, I was a psych major, and I got introduced to the cognitive sciences department there, and I was like what, you guys are doing this, you guys are doing Nobel like work, like it was amazing. And I got to talk to these like networks on the campus, and they're telling me, yeah, this is opportunities that you have, and this is like how we, our style of like connecting our students with mentors, like with they have this I like this concept called coffee with a professor that I actually took back to RCC. And you actually get to just book your professor, and they're obligated to go, and like the campus has this dining facility where you get to like pick their head, and like the campus pays for it and everything. And you talk about the research about how they got there, what they did for grad school, and what they're going through next. And I had as a first generation college student, I had never been exposed to that caliber and that quantity of like mindsets. And so I just really connected with it there. And then I went back to RCC and didn't go back to UCSD for like another year. And I actually tagged out to UCR. I got into UCI, but it wasn't for a psych program, it was for a biology program. And I was kind of like, oh, I mean, I want to, but I wasn't about it. So I was like, I'll probably go to UCR. But then out of nowhere, UCSD was like, hey, girl, we kind of like you want to come? And I was like, yes, I definitely want to go. But I transferred as a psychology major, and I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in the cognitive field, but not what. But once I got here and a lot of the available resources were given to me, I really honed in what I wanted. And that's where CBN and business psychology comes in. So like I will now, being at UCSD, I have a clear understanding that I want to go into like industrial organization psychology. And so it was the major for me, but I think more the field than anything else. So yeah, that's how I chose it.
These are some good responses, because and as I try to encourage students who are transferring, that there's a lot of factors to deciding what's best for you, whether it's the program, what is the campus life, whether it's non-academic factors like being closer to home or being closer to family, whether it's finances. All of these things are important factors to consider when you are applying and when you are choosing which place to go. All of them are important, and your individual stories seem to kind of highlight some of that. So moving on, I prepared some questions before we got here, but a lot of them kind of fall under the similar umbrella. And part of that is that transferring is one of those things that you're not really going to understand until you do it. So one question that I have is, what advice do you wish you received before you transferred?
I really want to take this one
Go for
because
it.
I worked really hard on this one, because I think that if someone would have told me this advice, it would have changed my whole transfer experience and college career at UCSD. And that's right now, people ask you, oh, what's up with life? What are you up to? And you're like, oh, I'm going to school at RCC and I want to transfer to X, Y, and Z. And that's what your like understanding of what your goals are right now is. Like, I'm in school. That's my job. That's my identity. That's all I'm doing. And that's great. And school is a goal. But I think we need to step outside of the fact that it's not the goal. The goal is to do something with your education. And if you're like changing that response to, oh, I'm trying to get a job in the medical field. Oh, what are you doing to that? Well, right now I'm going to school. And school becomes a driver instead of the ultimate goal, then you're not left with this like, oh, what do I do after graduation? Or, oh, am I doing the right things? I'll do it later. I'll get an internship later. I'll make that connection later. If you center yourself that school is a stepping stone and not the final goal, then I think it reorganizes your priorities and you're like, okay, how am I maintaining my goal with school? And so honestly, I wish someone would have kicked my butt and done that and just been like, school's great and you're gonna have the best time and it's amazing. But in no way, shape, or form is it the final goal. Like, you have to be keeping in mind that there's an eventual goal outside of school.
Excellent. Sarah?
This kind of correlates with question 2 as well. So
Right.
I'm going to throw that in there. But
Question 2 was what's the most difficult part of transferring?
yes.
I'm sort of combining it with the third one.
Sure. Definitely consider your options when it comes to transferring during winter. So I was a winter transfer, and for me, that was a huge mistake. I did not get into the honors program at UCR, even though there was supposed to be a bridging program, because I was a winter transfer and because I would be there for less than 2 years and wouldn't be able to complete their honors program. I wasn't eligible for honors classes. So that was really difficult because, you know, we come from RC where we're in these honors classes and they're small classes. And all of a sudden I'm at UCR with 50 people in my class. My professors weren't nearly as accessible as the professors at UCR were. And so that I feel like really impacted my transfer. And I didn't know going into it. And I didn't have to transfer it in winter because the thing is, what I didn't know, nobody told me. Well, and I could have looked for myself, let's be honest, but you have to get a certain number of credits in order to graduate outside of your discipline. I could have stayed at RCC for another semester and taken some photography, poetry classes. I took dance classes at UCR and still been able to transfer over in the fall semester and, you know, complete the credits I needed to in order to get my BA. So definitely look at all of your options there. How they weigh out, especially if being in an honors program is important to you.
That's a really good answer. And I'm glad you shared that because it's not exactly the most exciting, happy answer is that, you know what, this decision wasn't the greatest, but you're right. That's a good answer. And I'm glad you shared it. Eli?
Yeah, thank you. So just really off the bat, the amount of reading at the four-year institutional level can be really overwhelming. More so for like some majors more than others. So you got to like organize yourself really quickly on like how you're going to break down, you know, your course readings and stuff. For me at Cal, it's been a really humbling experience because it was like a reality check in terms of if you're like a spectacular student at your community college and like straight A's and stuff, like you're just regular here. Like it's really humbling. Luckily I've been able to maintain a 4.0, but it's still really, really difficult. And then also, depending on what institution you transfer, especially if you do transfer into a public four-year institution, they are massive institutions. So there's always going to be so much going on constantly. So you have to learn how to move and navigate the institution with intentionality, while at the same time still being open to new experiences. And then also, if you can, like, join like look for over the summer if you're transferring, look for like a transfer transition course, start acquainting yourself with like your department website, schedule a meeting with your department advisor, and then also look into your upper division major requirements. And then also just last thing, going off of I think what Sarah was saying right now, some of the classes are like huge. I just took a class right now finished taking a class with Robert Reich, and there was literally 700 students in the class. So yeah, in terms of accessibility for certain professors, that can be a little hard sometimes. So you have to learn how to, with your graduate student instructor or whoever your instructor is.
I just have a little thing to add to that, Rick. Sorry, it's a little.
Mary and then Haley.
Yeah, just real quick. When it comes to accessibility with professors, I understand, like, especially if the UCs are huge, but I kid you not, the loudest bird gets the worm. If you show
Squeaky
up,
wheel gets the grease.
yeah, if you show up 30 minutes early or an hour early to their office hours and you plop yourself right there, you're guaranteed to get the first. If you show up to a Zoom meeting 20 minutes before the office hours are open, you're guaranteed to get hit first. Like, that's a thing.
Good point. Haley?
Yeah, I absolutely second everything that Eli said, although I'm glad that I never had to deal with, or I've not had to deal with the whole like 700 student classes, because my classes have been like no more than 15 students and the professors teaching it. So like that's been great. But But yeah, absolutely everything that he said. One thing I do wish that I had done earlier, especially in the transfer process, was like maybe a year ahead of transferring. Like I should have been in contact with the admissions at Pomona College to find out about specifics about what will transfer and what will not, because at RCC, I had an AP score that took care of the requirement for my RCC, associate's degree. But then that class did not transfer to Pomona because or like it's not a class, but my AP score did not transfer. And so now I have to take a science at Pomona, and I know that'll be very difficult. And so I wish that I had taken that at RCC. And like known that would be something I'd have to complete ahead of time, so that I would have had more time to like take classes that I know that I will really enjoy. So yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to be quick because I have like 5 things that would have changed my decision. But the first thing is that, Hogan, I don't know if you've done this workshop still virtually, but you know that workshop you do where you give them a calendar and you say like, this is when you should be preparing to do your what are they called? Your essays for your
I
application.
haven't done that recently, but maybe I should do it again.
Oh my God, please do it and listen to the man when he tells you that you need to do things on certain dates. I was like, oh yeah, oh whatever, oh it's fine. No, one thing that Hogan said that was incredibly important is to work backwards from your desired job, to know what place you should go to for your undergraduate. For instance, I am really interested in forensic psychology, and UCLA does not have a forensic psychology program. They have basically everything else, but you're lucky to find classes that are related to that. You're lucky to find professors that are related to that. And while UCLA does give you the ability to take classes elsewhere, so like summer classes at UCI in forensic or UCR in forensic, that is something that might have really changed my decision. The other thing is know what kind of student you are. I am not good at being on time with things I need to complete. I'm a huge procrastinator. And in the 16-week semester system at RCC, I was able to manage all the things that were happening. But once you go to a school that has a quarter system and you have 10 weeks, you have midterms sometimes by the 3rd week. And it doesn't aid you in memorization and fully understanding the material. If you're already a procrastinator, you're just going to get this bad habit of cramming and doing the exam and then not retaining it once the class ends. And when you're going to be going to a master's program, you need to retain the information. It's very important. So that might change your decision as well. The other thing I would say is plan ahead. So what I did before I transferred in the fall was I was looking at minors that I was interested in. I was looking at classes, and I was also looking at clubs and things like that. I think it's really important to know beforehand what stuff you're interested in, especially if you want to do a minor, because one thing I did that I made the mistake of is there were minors that only opened once a year in fall. And I didn't find out about that minor until the quarter after, and I lost my opportunity to be able to do that minor. So I know it seems overwhelming to have to do all this research when you're already trying to figure out what your, housing is going to be like, or, that kind of thing, but really consider it, because sometimes you miss opportunities of things you really wanted to do.
Good explanations. Anybody else on this, or should we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something really quickly. I just would say try not to do too much. I got really involved in like too many things right off the bat. It was a little overwhelming. And what happened was I got into this program called Project Spell, and it was where you would teach English to predominantly Spanish-speaking adults in the area, like mostly people who worked on campus. and I had to quit because my grades started to dip, and I was just doing I had too much on my plate. I got involved in a research laboratory, and on top of like doing intramural basketball, it was just I was juggling too many things at once. And I think that you really need to like take a step back if you're doing too much, and just to try not to put too much on your plate.
An old adage in the writing or in the honor program is try to do less better. Because yeah, that can happen. Okay, so let's Jesse talked a little bit about this when it comes to sort of the logistical side of transfer. I know some of you transferred before the pandemic, some of you transferred during the pandemic, and that is going to affect probably what the experience is like, but also what your dorming or living accommodations are to be like. So I had a question: is sort of how did you navigate? Pause for dogs. How did you navigate the sort of the logistical side of transfer? You know, if it was pre-pandemic, how did you decide where you were going to live? If it's post-pandemic, how did you transfer in the middle of everything being on Zoom?
I think I'd take this one because I think I have a very interesting story when it comes to this. I moved from Riverside to San Diego, and I took a little while to start looking because I was like, my first breather, let me enjoy my summer. I was supposed to start school in September, and I didn't start looking until like July, maybe August. And that was bad because all the good rooms were already taken. And I decided to live off campus because I just didn't feel like dorm life was in it for me. I didn't want to share a room with anybody, and I just wanted, and I also have a dog that I was not going to separate from. So that was a big factor of like how you want to live your life, how you want to live your privacy, and just what you can afford, because you know beggars can't be choosers. And honestly, I got my own room, but it was like I was working a lot because I had to sustain that. But I lived an hour outside of San Diego because we're 2 hours away. So I was halfway there. That was the best that I could find. And I was commuting, and that was really rough. And then I finally found an apartment a month before the pandemic hit, and I was living my best life. Like I was deep in San Diego and living it. And I think it's really important to integrate yourself in the culture of where your school is, not just in your school, because you also make connections with the businesses in the area. So like in San Diego, there's a computer science business called Qualcomm, and they invest a lot in the school. So they are really open to hiring you as soon as you're out of that school just for that. And I was able to make that connection riding the bus to school and sitting next to somebody that worked at Qualcomm. And that was really, really great. But pandemic happened, and I lost my job. And so I was like, I need to go home. And I immediately, the day they closed school, I terminated my lease and I went back home. And it was really, really rough, just mentally and everything. And so I finally moved back out and I'm living on my own again, which is great. But school's all online, and I'm in Riverside, and I feel that disconnect because I'm not on campus. I'm not in office hours anymore. Even Zoom office hours are a little different. So you really have to understand what's going to make you thrive. And if that's dorming and having that connection to your friends, because you're going to be able to like go to breakfast with them and meet up after school and study and all that, then that's really, really great. But if you know that you can't deal with like also the drama of dorm life, which is like people in your stuff and people disrespecting stuff as well, then you need to really understand like what's going to make me thrive and just what's going to be the best for me. And sometimes you just got to think about also what's going to be as much fun as much as work. It's like a good balance too, you know?
Good. That's interesting that you've got experience with both of them, and the people who are in the or who are currently remote learning, they're probably doing the opposite. So instead of going and finding a place to live on campus or near campus and then going online, they're doing the reverse, where now that at least most of these universities are going to have some form of in-person instruction in the fall, it's going to be, it's the other way around. Anyone else want to share their experience of trying to figure out the logistics and the living of it all?
I can go. So yeah, I transferred in fall 2019. So I was at UCLA for 6 months living on campus, and immediately prior to that at RCC, I had studied abroad. So I kind of experienced living with roommates. Felt comfortable living with one or two other roommates at UCLA, and you kind of get on a lottery system, and so it's really not up to you, your accommodations as far as that. You list them from 1 through 10, and whatever you get, you have a better likelihood if you're a freshman, or you're guaranteed at least 1 year, your junior year. So it was nice up until March, where I had to move out, and I would say to definitely have a backup plan, whether that be moving in with your parents or your significant other. Luckily enough, my girlfriend lived in Culver City, which is like 10 minutes from UCLA. And it's been a struggle, like everybody else online. And I'm looking forward to being in class in person now, actually, moving forward. So I would just, have a backup plan, and then just try to do other things to, remain mentally strong throughout something like this. Hopefully it doesn't happen again or continue like this.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that COVID-22 is not a thing.
So I didn't have living situation issues, but the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in things, as far as, so I had only been at UCR a couple quarters by the time the pandemic hit, and then everything went online. So I didn't get a good chance to really dive in and get to know some of my professors, because after the pandemic, everyone was kind of stressed and trying to navigate this Zoom environment. And so with that being said, when I have to get letters of recommendation, I'm still tapping into my community college professors, because I don't have a lot of access to my UCR professors. With that being said, I actually started grad school, my master's program, on Zoom, and I've actually never even been to the campus. So that's been really odd as well, because you're getting to know a whole new group of people, a whole new school system, and and a master's program in itself on Zoom is just intense.
I've had like really strange opposite problems with the dorming living situation, because with Pomona, they only allow 60 students to live off campus. And so I am actually kind of fighting with the school to like allow them to let me live off campus, because I don't want to pay for room and board. They're actually still going to make me pay for board, which is like $5,000, which is, I don't want to get into all that, but that's definitely something to consider, especially with private schools, is that they really want you to live on campus, because it's like the whole campus community is very big. And I know that most people do enjoy it, but just financially, I'm trying to like save that money. So
did they have students live on campus during the pandemic?
No, not during the pandemic, but as we're preparing to go back,
I see.
They're only allowing 60 students out of, I think there's 1,500 at the school, only allowing 60 to live off campus. So
very interesting.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, in terms of like easing the process as well as like housing, UCLA has like a subreddit, and I'm sure other class or campuses have subreddits as well. But if you look online, whether that's like through YouTube videos that students have posted or the subreddits, they're usually discussing like what dorms are the best, or what off-campus apartments are the best, or they're even, looking for people to help like driving. So if you're commuting, they'll be like, hey, I want a carpool. I live in this city, who is available to do it. And that can be a lot easier finding information than trying to like contact the school and ask them. Going more straight from the students is a lot easier, in my opinion. And also something that I think is important is that when I was watching those YouTube videos, had heard from a transfer student at UCLA that they have, transfer summer, like the summer transfer thing for UCLA students, but they also have the freshman one, and that as a transfer, you're kind of expected to know some of this information, but you might not have been told it. And they encouraged that for the, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's like your entrance where they like set you up for your first quarter. Does anybody know the name of that?
Orientation?
Thank you. Yes. So transfer orientation, I decided to do the freshman one because there is very important information about like the types of classes UCLA has that you weren't probably going to get told in transfer. However, there's a lot of impacted classes for psychology students, and the psychology department only opens those extra spots for the transfer orientation sections, not the freshmen. So I needed to take my first psychology class, and they hadn't opened the spots because I went to the freshman one. Luckily, they were able to open it for me and I got the spot, but that's something very important to consider.
There was a question from the chat that I think would be a great one for us to talk about here. Natalie says, I'm planning on transferring next year and I'm 21 now, but feel that when I transfer, I'll be a bit too old to fit into the community such as dorming. The question would be, is there any housing for students around my age, such as dorms? I just don't want to feel out of place. To which I say, well, you asked a great panel, but let's discuss it. Haley.
Yeah, so with Pomona, just like I think someone said about this about UCLA or Berkeley, they also have the transfers dorming together. And then there's always going to be transfers that are older than you. I think the oldest transfer at my school is like 33. So there's that. And then also there are a lot of students who have taken gap years. And so I know like it seems like you might be like the oldest one there, but there's always going to be people who are the same age or even older than you. So don't feel like you're uncomfortably older than everyone else.
Yeah, and plus, just because you're older and you're not really that much older, there's, especially with a pandemic, there's probably going to be a delay with a lot of the ages, so you're really on par for that age. But even for if you do meet other older people, it's having the mindset of like, oh my gosh, they're older, so they must be out of place or they did something wrong in life. Like, no, they have experience and discipline that you can probably benefit. And having that identity as being a little bit older and not so naive is actually useful in those kinds of settings, because like I was older going to college, and I wasn't afraid of like professors because I was like, oh, they're only a little bit older than me. I'm like, let me talk to you, you know? So being older isn't inherently a disadvantage. Like, that's just something society bounds into you that's not really relevant.
Yeah, the bridge off what Mary said, yeah, being older can be an advantage, and some of your professors will be your peers. And like I said, I'm 33, and I was rooming with a 29-year-old and a 51-year-old, and I never felt out of place. And I didn't really go to like frat parties or anything like that, so I already was out of that. And if you're just like focused on your studies, you're not really going to be involved in any of those social things as much.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, for me, when I believe the age range for my year last year was like 12 to 64 for the students entering UCLA. There have been many students older than me in my classes. I'm in a class right now where there's 2 people in their 50s. And so, especially in terms of like the transfer community at UCLA, they're so diverse and so large that you're for sure going to find, your age group. And I think it also depends on the social groups. Like you can actively seek out social groups that have interests to yours, or an age group that's similar to yours. So I would not worry about it at all, because at the end of the day, like your age is not necessarily going to impede you at school. So I know it's a concern. I was concerned. I took 3 years at RCC. I'm going to be 23 this year. So that was like, I was a little nervous about it, but I'm totally fine. I'm sure people would agree on this panel no matter what school. Like, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay.
Another thing that you'll find, the further you pursue your education, in my doctorate program that I just finished at Cal State San Bernardino, I was like the 3rd youngest person in my cohort. Now I'm young in general. I'm for my career path, I'm 31, but most of the people that I became really close with had grandkids. One of my best friends in the cohort, she was in her 60s and she was getting her doctorate. And a lot of people were in there, we ended up, it was less about life stage and it was more about career interests the further we got, because we didn't bond over, I don't have grandkids, but we were able to bond over, working with students and, research interests, which are the things that kind of, that brought us together. The further you get along that, it's more about common interest, I think, than common life stage. Sarah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say something on that because kind of what you were saying, Professor Hogan. I mean, I'm 39, and at every stage of school, even at RCC, I mean, I've had unwavering support from people that are my kids' age at this point, and have been able to connect with people based on what I'm studying, and even beyond that. I think it's just being open that, regardless of an age, a person can still contribute to your life in some way or another, and vice versa.
Excellent question, Natalie. This one was a popular one that a lot of the folks on the honors board were stressing out about. So how did you all adjust to plus minus grading and the quarter system?
Go ahead, Stephen. Sorry.
It's all good. All right, thanks. Poorly at first. I wasn't ready. I was so overwhelmed living in Westwood. I was like, I'm living in LA. I'm like 10 minutes from the Comedy Store. I can do all this stuff, and it's a little bit overwhelming. After, I think it was mentioned earlier, Jesse, you said your midterms are in week 3, and if you're a couple days behind on your reading, then you're like 100 pages behind on your reading, and now you have to like, okay, now I can't see my family this week, and now I can't do all these things. So I would also suggest to do extra credit, because that can buffer your grade, and it can be the difference between a B+ and an A-. And if you haven't looked at the calculations, so like a B+ is something like a 3.7 or something like that. So they'll actually like lower your grade. And you can also have to look into this when you're considering pass, no pass classes. So if you have a 3.5 and you need to raise your GPA, then you need to take it a pass, no pass if you're going to get a B. So you have to consider these things.
Yeah, and so at Cal we have the semester system. We don't have a quarter system. So cool. I can only imagine how like intense a quarter system is. I've never like undergone it. So yeah, y'all have my sympathies. But in terms of the A+, A-, B+, B-, yeah, that's something that really like stressed me out a lot too, coming in as a transfer student, and especially here at Cal, because a lot of professors grade on a curve. So you really have to be, and then like Cal is kind of toxic, so like you have to be strategic, especially like here in terms of, if your class is being graded on a curve, you got to like see who are like the smarter kind of students. I'm telling you, it's like super toxic, but like, and then you like do study groups with them, and then
I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say you need to slash their tires.
Yeah, no. but yeah, kind of just try to, this is so toxic, but try to like maintain it at that same kind of like level, and then do study groups, and yeah, it's just, yeah, Cal's weird. So but these grades, like honestly, like they don't define you as a person, you know, as long as you graduate, that's what you should be aiming for.
One of the best things that ever happened to me in my doctorate was the semester I had just a lousy teacher, and I got a B plus, and it was my second quarter, and it was one of those lousy teachers. There was nothing I could do. She literally never gave me any graded feedback, so I had no idea even how I could have improved my grade. It was just sort of luck of the draw. But the best part of the B plus was I realized, okay, that one's out of my control. The 4.0 is gone. So I'm going to get as good grades as I can reasonably get, and I'm not going to punish myself if, if I got a lower grade. That ended up being the lowest grade I got my entire program, but it was nice that I realized, like, okay, perfection is not the goal here. Progress is the goal, and I'm going to do the best I can. Now, granted, still needed to stay on top of things, but I at least I wasn't chasing perfect. Sarah.
Yeah, I definitely can speak to that. In my first quarter at UCR, I was taking this great class that was really interesting and I loved it. And I took my first test and got a D. That's the lowest grade I've ever gotten. And it totally freaked me out. I was super stressed out, just adjusting to how much reading and how quickly everything was going. And with that, kind of the road Professor Hogan went, and I'm like, well, it is what it is. And I'm just going to keep trying and do better. But at the end of the day, as much as I strive to, keep that 4.0 at RCC, at TR, I kind of realized it wasn't as important as my mental health and whatnot, and just kind of being kind to myself, and just, putting in that best effort, but not breaking my back or creating that really environment of stress that I had at my home.
Yeah, this might just be a UCLA thing. So I'm only going to speak from that perspective, but the make or break for me in a lot of my classes at UCLA was my relationship with the teaching assistant. There are going to be a lot of classes that the professor is awesome, but the class is inherently difficult, and the professor tells you that it is inherently difficult. And sometimes you don't have the option to drop and take it a different time. And so building a rapport with your TAs and telling them that you're struggling and letting them get to know you. When somebody knows you, they're more likely to help you. If you're just a stranger who like leaves class 5 minutes early all the time and doesn't talk to them and doesn't ask them questions, when you go and suddenly there's an emergency, the fire is there and like you're about to break down, they're probably not going to be as open to helping you unless you've been every week asking them a question or telling them your experience. And I've had TAs who were like, I know this class is hard. I'm not going to tell the professor this, but I'll tell you, I'm going to grade it. I'm going to grade it more leniently. So don't worry about it. And
one thing, Jesse,
yeah.
Could you clarify for those who've never been in that kind of educational environment, what's a TA?
Okay, yeah. So a TA is a teaching assistant, usually either a senior undergraduate or, for the most part, a graduate student who has taken that class before or is familiar with the material. And their job, because classes are much larger at UCLA, is to lead a discussion section. So think of it as like the honors classes at RCC, you know, how it's like a smaller group of people. Instead of that being the entire class, it's just your TA and that discussion section. And like, for instance, Psych 100B and Psych 100A, which are the first two classes you have to take in your first year at UCLA as a psychology student, those are going to be 300 people. And so you're probably going to have close to like 10 TAs, and they're each going to teach their own discussion section at a varying time of the week. And they're going to go over material, give you like assignments and things like that. Those TAs, when I would tell them there's so much reading, I don't know what to do, they just told me, don't do all the reading. Look, it's not important. What matters is that you read enough of the material that will help you with the exam. Not every single word in that book is necessary. And there were times where I took an intro history course, which, let me tell you, those are the hardest at UCLA. Don't take them. Don't take them. Even if you think it could be fun, don't take them. I did it my first quarter. I hated myself. I hated my life. But luckily my TA told me exactly what reading they were going to go over in discussion section. And so I just did that reading so that I got my participation points. There's ways around it. So I would just say, don't worry, if you work the system, you'll be fine.
It's interesting that you bring that up. That is definitely a lesson that is often not advertised, that one of the secrets to getting through plus minus system, quarter system, and a lot of reading is figuring out what not to read. Figure out, okay, is this, this reading might be really important, but will I be graded on it? Will I be tested on it? Am I going to be using this, by reading it this weekend, am I going to be using it next weekend? Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. And what you need to do is kind of triage your work that way. But also what it seems from a variety of you were pointing out is finding areas of relationships, whether that's the hotshot student in the class, whether that's a study group, whether that is a relationship with the professor themselves or with the teaching assistant, that it's doing this in community and finding a support network. Sounds like that's one of the best ways to game the system, if you will. Anyone else have any comments on that one?
Yeah, I just have one more. With the quarter system, I guess like the connotation here from semester to quarter, it's a big scary beast that you shouldn't have to worry about. But me personally, I love the quarter system because it took me 3 years to get out of RCC, just because if you miss something or do something and go this way, change, you have all these 16 weeks you have to go through that are consecutive. Try taking a math series at RCC. But at a quarter system, they're so quick, and I don't know. They're kind of like boot camp for me. I'm a procrastinator, so you can't procrastinate, or if you do, you're procrastinating a little bit each week because you have something due each week. So you can't put off things for 2 weeks because then that's just not possible. So you're doing something every week, but you're probably doing it at the last minute every week. But so much better than every 4 weeks as a semester system. So I think if you just understand that it's going to be different, but it's not inherently bad. I mean, there's people are doing this perfectly fine and getting through it. So it's not a beast. You just gotta understand it's going to be a change. That's it.
I think we have time for one more question. And one of the things I wanted to ask was, because a lot of people who are transferring, their four-year university is not the end of the road. And we had some discussion about working backwards from your career path. We had some discussion about graduate school. So for those of you who are in graduate school or pursuing graduate school, what advice would you give to students who are currently at RCC about either career or graduate school?
So I would definitely tell them to do as many of the research conferences as humanly possible, because that looks amazing on your CV and it will help you to kind of start understanding research in grad school. As far as reading goes, what to read and what not to read. Right now, I have 3 classes, so I read about 2.5 books a week. And so I've had to learn how to skim, because I never know what point they're going to pick out from that book. But also these classes, if they are specific to what you want to learn, it's a little extra work, but write an abstract on it. Even if it's only a 500-word abstract, that will help you build your historiography when you're going to do your thesis. In my case, with history. But in general, whatever discipline you're doing, if you're doing a thesis or a research project, instead of going back and looking at the stuff you've read, if you take the time to just write some of this stuff down, cite it, it is going to be invaluable later on. yeah,
So an
that's all.
abstract, essentially like a summary of what you just read.
Yeah, yeah, and then, I mean, if you have extra time, like what I do is I do the abstract of what I read, about 250 words, and then I write supporting on it. And so, I pull out all the points from all my pages. So that way I can go back when I am writing my thesis and I've already got it built, because you don't have a lot of time. I mean, when you're in grad school, you're still working. You're not going to get the funding usually that you would get for your undergrad. And so you have to really balance out the fact that now you're working, you're taking very intense classes, and you're writing a thesis or doing a thesis research project. And so allocating time and being organized is the best thing you can do for yourself. So taking those little moments after you've read that book and trying to make as many notes as possible will really help.
Yeah, because then when you're going to use it in a research paper or you're going to use it in sort of a terminal project like a dissertation or a thesis, you're going to be able to pull things back from it rather than having it go in one eye and out the other. That's a great piece of advice. Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I would say if you're interested in going to graduate school, start looking at schools you're interested in right now. It's never too early. I compiled a list of like 30 to 50 schools, and I started reaching out to them immediately in my junior year, actually, at the summer. So I was asking them, are you going to be accepting fall students in fall 2021? Then you can kind of whittle your list down. But immediately upon getting into a university, I would join a lab, if not in the summer prior, especially if you want to do like a social science, like psychology. The lab experience is going to be really important to get an interview to schools, and also get involved in the lab. Don't just be in it to have it be a line on your CV. Get involved with the graduate students. Say, I want to do research. These are things I'm interested in. I ended up getting involved in a project, and now it's submitted for publication, and I'm waiting on it for to be reviewed. And that's gonna like set you apart when you're applying to graduate schools in the future. So definitely get into a lab. I suggest that.
Yeah, I just actually wanted to jump off that. Even in your at UC, or I'm sorry, RCC right now, anything that you can get involved in your community, like the Center for Social Justice, I volunteered there for a while after we went and saw it with one of the teachers at RCC. And it's been really helpful as far as what I want to do with public history and whatnot. So it's never too early to start involving yourself with the things that you're interested in your community.
Yeah, just really briefly, just start searching for like a passion project. Figure out what you're passionate about right now, if you're at the community college level. And then once you transfer into a four-year institution, you'll figure out how to transform that into a research question that could be something that you could into a research proposal for graduate school. I'm in the process of like doing this whole applying for graduate school right now. So make sure you maintain contact with at least one professor at RCC, because you are going to need 2 plus 2 or 3, 4 letters of rec. So make sure to maintain a longitudinal contact with somebody at your community college. And then also, it's never too early to start GRE prep. And then also, if you are a student from a low-income marginalized community, look into the McNair program. It's a federally funded program at public institutions. So definitely do that. I am a McNair scholar at Cal currently, so they've been helping me out a lot with this. So look into definitely graduate preparation programs at your institution.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add, I think Stephen had said this in the chat about joining a lab, and also said it when he was speaking, but when it comes to like prepping yourself for graduate school, joining honors and doing honors at UCLA is kind of intricate, because there's 3 types of honors. There's Latin honors, which is just your GPA, but then there's college honors and departmental honors. I joined college honors the summer before I entered UCLA, and that was incredibly helpful because they have different qualifications if you join as a transfer student in the summer versus after you get there. The GPA requirement is lower, and things like that. And you can also transfer your TAP college or honors classes. By doing honors or by doing departmental honors, there is research that happens, and that research can prepare you. Departmental honors for psychology students, usually the culture is that you join a lab. And by doing departmental honors, that is basically preparing you for grad school. You can do it if you're not interested in grad school, but they don't recommend it. And the goal is you'll do a project, your honors thesis your senior year, and that research can either be published or not, it's up to you. But you have a faculty advisor who at the end will write you a letter of recommendation. I would also say create a LinkedIn and make sure your resume and your CV is up to date, because a lot of labs or a lot of research opportunities, they're going to want to look at your resume. I'll say this with applications and also for interviews, put the stuff you did at RCC. Don't just leave out the honors classes because they had research in them, or a research paper or a group project. That stuff is helpful. Even if you think, oh, it's small or whatever, make sure you document it, because it's not going to be like a bad thing if you say I'm a transfer student. It shows that you are prepared, and that's great. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So it seems some common themes here are essentially when you transfer, if you're thinking grad school might be a thing, you might be a junior when you walk onto campus as a transfer student, but you already need to start thinking about, all right, if I'm thinking grad school, where might I go? How can I pursue opportunities to make myself competitive and to explore the things that I'm interested in, while I'm here? If I'm thinking that, in a few years, I want to go get a PhD or a master's, well, then what can I do here? Whether that's joining a lab or doing a research project or getting involved in, an organization, what can I do now that will, pay dividends later? Excellent. Okay, I don't want to keep our panel too long, because I said an hour and we're already a little bit over. So what I will do is, at this point, remind everybody, if you have any further questions, and if you have more specific questions, keep in mind that this is what, about transfer and all that stuff. Keep in mind that this is about, this is what your honors coordinators are here for. What I'm here for, it's what Michael Love is here for, and that we can answer. And if you email us, we might not have the answer, but we can help you find the person who does have the answer. And so we're going to support you on this. The panel, any closing thoughts to sign off here?
I don't want to call him out, but Professor Amadon says that once he's your teacher, you're always his student. And I have no qualms with still sending my papers for him to edit. So, again, use your RCC professors as a resource, even beyond RCC.
Find a bleeding heart, codependent workaholic, and we'll help you for the rest of your life.
And come to Dr. Hogan with your personal statements.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something I don't think I realized until I was at UCLA was that RCC really prepared me and helped me a lot for UCLA, especially like getting all of those classes done before going to UCLA. I was in a much better, more stress-free environment than a lot of my friends who were not transfer students. So I would just say, I know it's very overwhelming and there seems like a lot of variables, but being a transfer student can actually be like a skill and a gift, and like don't ever think of it as like a bad thing. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I'm really, I think this is just like for the other panelists, like I'm really happy, that we all started at RCC and, where our journey has taken us now to like a variety of places. And I think that's just so awesome and like a beautiful thing to see, that we all came from RCC. Also, go Bears, and UCLA is number 2.
In what?
No, this is just ongoing thing. Sorry.
Eli's purposely trying to make me angry.
You,
Yeah,
you
I
guys
see a little
are
bit of that toxic
UCB.
energy up there. Just kidding.
Yeah, you guys are UCB now. You guys aren't Cal.
My honors classes just like absolutely prepared me for like everything that Pomona is, because Pomona is just like all my classes are like RCC honors classes. So it's just like all the best things about RCC just like at my next school. So
I think everyone said everything pretty great, but just reach out to us too, guys, because in about a year or so, we're going to be in different places and jobs and graduate schools, and we're now your connections. And you guys are tigers, and we're tigers at heart. I don't care if you guys are bears, chartans, whatever. Y'all tigers. Don't forget where you came from. So hit us up. We're going to be in places, and we'd love to help.
And Robert, any last words?
Listen to everything Amadon tells you forever. Sarah said she didn't want to call out Amadon. I do want to call out Amadon.
He's worth calling out. The sad thing, this is Amadon's last semester in honors.
Is he still going to be at RCC?
Yeah, he's going to be at RCC, but he's moving out of honors. I'm becoming Amadon, and then there's going to be a new student coordinator and a like an official honors counselor. So, but it's the end of the Amadon era. Okay, thank you everybody for coming, both the panelists and the students. I hope this was as enlightening for you. I learned some things even as the coordinator. So I really appreciate all of you taking your time to do this. And for everybody, whether you're watching this in the chat right now or whether you're watching this later, let me know, daniel.hogan@rcc.edu, if there's a way that I can support you in the transfer process, and we'll make that happen. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.